Hello, dear. It's Heather, and you are watching Save Today with Heather J. I'm somebody who has spent her entire adult life living paycheck to paycheck and being one life event away from financial crisis. I am in the process of changing that. I have created this channel as a way to hold myself accountable and to perhaps bring some encouragement, maybe, at the very least, some company to those of you who are out there in a similar situation as me. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm doing. Today, before I get into today's video, I do want to kind of talk about something that's been on my mind a little bit. Initially, I was going to do a separate video on its own to discuss it outside of the budget, but I don't want to give it that much importance and attention. It is something that's been on my mind and I want to mention it, but I don't want to create an entire essentially rant video to address the subject. What am I talking about? Why would that be a thing that needs to happen? I put out my initial video, my very first #1 video, in May. That video, for whatever reason, is continuing to get a lot of traction even now, all the way into September. It is still the video that has the most views on it, which I don't understand. Maybe somebody who understands the algorithm a little bit better knows why. I assumed my very first video would not be seen by anybody and it would be gone very quickly. I don't know why 5 months later, video #1 is still drawing attention. But in video #1, I mentioned that my adult son lives with me and his 2 children come over occasionally and spend, not occasionally, they're here half of the time. That seems to have upset several people. They want me to explain in greater detail why he's here, what the situation may be, and how much he's contributing. I have tried to very politely let people know that that's none of your business. If it was your business, if it was my business, I would share that. It's not my business to share, and it's not your business to know. That has upset a few people. I did have several very negative comments, people making assumptions and being upset with me based on the assumptions they've created, because I refuse to give any more information than that. This is just the situation where his income affects my income. I will address that. It specifically happens most frequently in my phone bill. And I said at that time, on months where I pay the complete bill, I will write that whole amount down. On months where he pays his portion, in air quotes, then I will only write down the amount that I have paid. But in my budgeting, I will budget the entire amount of that, because ultimately I am the one whose name is on that bill, and ultimately I am the one who is responsible for that. Whether we decide for whatever reason that he's not going to pay that this month, whether we decide for whatever reason that he's going to pay the entire bill that month, is our business and not anybody else's. The only reason it ever comes up is because we share that one bill. I did have one lady tell me that because I don't share any information, people assume he's mooching off of me, and that's irritating. My response is this: you can assume whatever you want. We all assume what we want in our own heads all of the time. The fact that you're irritated about something you made up is a you problem. It's not my problem, and I don't have to explain it to you so that you're not happy. If you want to make something up that doesn't irritate you, do so. Maybe he's a war veteran who was injured or having PST. Maybe he just got out of jail. Maybe he has some health problems. Maybe he has some mental disabilities. It does not matter why we have chosen to have that be our situation. And it is not any of your business why that is. So if you don't like that, I'm not telling you. If you don't approve of the choices we've made, you are free to step off. You are free to go. This is my channel, and I will share as much or as little as I choose. And if you don't like it, you are free to leave. There are thousands of other places to be. You don't have to be here. Okay? Now, why did I bring that up? There are some transactions in here, and there will always be some transactions that are based on him. And you're not going to like it if you're somebody who doesn't like it. And I became very cautious about the things I was talking about. And I'm not going to be trying to talk in code and talk around things. I'm going to talk about my life, and there are parts of that he is in, and I will address that as that comes up. But I'm not going to share any additional information about that unless I decide. Okay? All right. So, rant over. Happy smile. Let's get on to today's more positive video. Today, I'm going over my spending in paycheck number 1, in week number 1 of September. So for me, week number 1 in September was from the 25th to the 31st, I believe. I get paid every other Friday, so my weeks go from this Friday to the following Thursday. With my spending check-in, what I'm looking for is my flexible spending, the things I have control over. I have control over, in theory, my groceries, dining out, transportation, art, and miscellaneous. Those are the things that are going to fluctuate greatly based on decisions I make. Those are the things I need to track and be aware of how much I'm spending and controlling what I can where I can. Let's get into this. On the 25th, in the transportation category, I did fill up my tank and spend $42.66. Now, my son had taken his kids to the library, and while he was there, he had seen a quilt show that was being advertised that was going to be. He sent a picture of that to me, and I decided I was going to go on the one day I was off that was available. And so I drove myself this 45 minutes to an hour and a half away to this particular place that was having this quilt show. I almost didn't go because it's a long ways to go, but I'm new to the area and I don't have a whole lot of networking in place yet. And I would really like to find a place where I could rent time on a sit-down quilting machine. Again, I've told you I want to purchase a Handy Quilter Sweet 16 because I want to be able to sit down and do my bigger quilts, and I don't have a way to do that yet. In some areas I have lived in, you can rent time on a long arm machine, and I didn't want to do a long arm machine because I know never in my life am I ever going to own a long arm machine. I don't want to learn how to use a machine that I'm not ever going to want to purchase, because when I'm finally at the point of purchasing a machine for myself, I'm going to have to relearn, and I didn't want to do that twice. So that's why I chose to drive this 45 minutes, hour and 10 minutes, whatever it ended up being each way, to go to this place. However, I had decided fairly late in the day that I was going to go. I had actually forgotten that it was that day, and by the time I remembered that, I was kind of pushing the time limit of when that might be available. I didn't know how big or how small this was going to be, and I didn't know, I didn't know. And I knew it was a long shot, but I wanted to try to see if there was any way I could rent some time on a machine. If anybody there knew of a connection, I could go. So I went, but I didn't eat yet. And I knew dining out is my struggle, you guys. I don't want to have to spend money to go eat. And I was driving past all of the places, and I was like, well, I could go to Wendy's and get, spend $5.35 and get their cheap whatever. And I thought, no, I know I have to get gas. I'll just get a quick snack at the gas station and be on my way. And then I can eat a real meal when I get home. And I'm not going to go out to eat. I'm not dining out. So that's what I did. I went into the gas station. I said, I want $35 on pump number 4. And I got a bag of chips, a bag of circus cookies, Was that it? Oh, and a drink. I don't remember what that was, a sweet tea or something. And that was $7.55. I would have been cheaper to go to Wendy's and spend $5.35 on their meal, that cheap little garbage meal, but that would have been my dining out category. So I technically could have pulled this $7.66 off and considered that dining out, but I'm leaving that in transportation. It was all one transaction at that gas station. This $7.66, because again, I spent $35 on gas, and the rest of that is the snacks I got for myself. So that was like a yowza. That didn't quite work out how I had hoped, but that's that. Then on the 25th, again, in the transportation category, again, gasoline for $24.80. This was to fill up the second vehicle so my son can get to and from work. I have mentioned the fact that he just had surgery. He had just gone back to work, and at this time, he had not yet received his first check. So he had been back at work at 2 weeks at this point and did not yet have his check. His gas tank needed to be filled, so I had to pay that $24.80. This is why the rant at the beginning, because I know there's people who hear me say he's working and I put gas in his car, and they're upset about that. He has not yet received his first check from his medical leave, and anything beyond that is not your business. In fact, that part is not your business to be upset about. Okay? On the 28th, in the groceries category, I went to Kroger and spent $19.64. On the 28th, again in the groceries category, again at Kroger, I spent $41.59. Now, the 28th was actually that Monday, and I have mentioned before that all of the transactions that happen over the weekend get posted in the account on that Monday. So this was probably a Friday night or a Saturday morning, and then each day for the weekend. On the 29th, in the groceries category at Kroger, I spent $56.14. On the 31st, in the groceries category at Kroger, I spent $32.75. And then this last transaction I have here, I have listed under miscellaneous, and this is 5 transactions that I spent out of my budget to get the things my son needed because he didn't have his check yet. I almost did not include this money in my budget because there are people who have been very critical in their comments about me spending money on my son and how his being here is negatively affecting my budget. And I've decided I'm not going to let you censor me. I'm not going to be censored by the few negative comments I've received. And really, in the grand scheme of my actual comments, that has been very little. But the comments on that video, that's the most frequent comment, and it still comes up because people are still watching it. So it's like rubbing salt in a wound. It's just kind of a festering thing in my head. He needed some things, whatever those may have been, and I got them for him. And I got them for him with no strings attached. There is no, yeah, I know it sucks that you don't have any money right now. I know it sucks that this thing just happened to you. But when things are all better, like there's no strings attached. You needed this. You couldn't get it for yourself. I will do that for you. There will be a time when you can, and I won't anymore, but I'm not going to kick him when he's down. And I'm not going to let you kick me for that. You can treat your own budget how you want. You can help the people in your life, or you cannot, however you see fit. I made this choice in my budget. So that is it for my flexible spending. We're going to go over here and see where that left me with my spending in this week 1. Now, I have given myself an estimate of $140 a week, which would have been $560 for the entirety of the 4-week month in my groceries. And so I spent $150 in this 1 week, so a little bit over my estimate. That's leaving me with $409.88 in the groceries budget. In the dining out budget, you guys, I spent $0 in dining out. And you might want to decide that that $7.66 was dining out, and that's fine. I'll let you. I made the choice that that's not. Which for me means, you guys, this is the 3rd week in a row that I have had 0 spending in my in my dining out. $0, 3 weeks. Unheard of. I have not gotten 3 weeks in a row to this point. Once prior to this, I had gone 2 weeks. Now I've gone 3 weeks. That is huge for me. This is my number one battle for myself. This is the one area that I greatly wanted to see change in. And I'm so excited about 3 weeks in a row of no spending. The other thing is, I didn't just not get, like, a couple of times I've not dined out, but I've wanted to so desperately. For hours, that's all I can think about is going and getting this food. That didn't happen this week. In week 3, I didn't think about dining out until it was getting into Wednesday night, going into Thursday. And I realized I was now pushing week 3. And all of a sudden I was like, can I get through it? And I began thinking about what the impact was. And I began thinking about what dining out was. But up until that point, dining out never, ever crossed my mind. And even when it had crossed my mind, it wasn't an urge that I had to fight to control. This is huge for me. I'm going to take that as a gigantic win. In the transportation, because I did have to fill up both cars on that one day, that was $67.46. I had given myself an estimate of $40 a week, $80 per pay period. So I had spent $67.46 of that, which leaves me with $92.54 for the next 3 weeks in that pay period. In the art category, I had given myself $0 in the budget. I picked a project knowing I wasn't going to have to be spending money. I picked a project that I'm fairly certain I have all the things I'm going to need for it. And I did not spend anything on that in this month, or in this week. In the miscellaneous category, I spent $72.67. I didn't give myself any budget for that, so that $72.67 is negative in that category. And again, I don't feel bad about this. This was things that he needed. He only asked for the things that he absolutely needed, and I'm happy to supply that at a time when he can't. So my total spend for this week was $290.25, which leaves me with $429.75 to carry me through the rest of the 3 weeks in this month. And that is it for the budgeting portion of today's video. The next thing that I like to go over is my project that's going on in the background, my art here. And I am working on, for those of you who don't remember or didn't watch any of the previous ones, this is the project I'm working on, is this Halloween project. I'm going to get that finished, fingers crossed, in this month of September, and it will be available for decorating in the month of October. But with this project, you take the squares and sew them together, and then you take this tool and lay that on the, and then you cut that out, and you're left with this weird netting that I think is absolutely fun, where, let me get this off of there. You're left with this net here where you've cut out those squares. And then sometimes I take these off and try and reuse them, and sometimes they're too small. And then you re-sew those together into this zigzaggy thing. And let's see. So once it comes back together, and you'll see I have sewed the columns together of what I've cut out already, but I have not sewed the rows together. So this is still looking a bit like a net. This just helps keep all of the pieces in place. And so that's where I'm at with this project at this point. I'm not quite kind of halfway through. Once I get all of these cut, I'm just cutting one column at a time and then stitching that column to the other, to the edge over here. And then I will sew those rows together. And then we will get that on batting and a backing and get that quilted together. So that should come together fairly quick. I think I will get this done just barely by the end of the month. But it's coming together beautifully. I think these are really fun. At the first time I did one of these, I was really, for those of you who know quilting or a quilter, the joke is kind of that we take fabric, we take perfectly good fabric, cut it into pieces and sew it back together again and make it perfectly good fabric. So that's a lot of work did it again. And when I first did this, I was like, what? What do you mean I have to cut that apart? I just did all of the work. It's ready for the quilting. Now I have to go cut that all apart and sew that again. But it makes for a much more dynamic project to have, and it makes it super duper simple. And it comes together, these come together even though you're doing double the work, sewing it together to cut it apart to sew it together again. It comes together so much faster than any of the other projects I've done before. So I'm really having a lot of fun just pushing this through the machine, and we'll see how far I get before the next video, because that's going to be coming up pretty quick. So that's where I'm at. I'm just kind of moving this project forward one little stitch at a time. We're going to get there in the end. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who have never ever said anything negative and aren't thinking those negative thoughts to me, I'm so sorry that you had to listen to that rant, but I felt like it was very important to put those boundaries out there. We as human beings, our brains, for whatever reason, really are hardwired for a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of negative output. And we just really need to work hard on what we're thinking in our heads and how we're letting that filter out into the world. So if you're somebody who finds yourself thinking negative thoughts about people, I mean, like, I haven't given any extra information on that. Why is that? Anyway, I'm done. I'm done with that rant. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate all of the comments, and I'm so glad you're here. Anyway, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing today, please have fun. Okay? Bye-bye now.